We can't deny that survival games have come a long way ever since the genre was created. Now, game developers have been trying to integrate different twists to the age-old genre, which is why more and more people are getting into these kinds of games. Rust is one of the iconic survival games that just came out a few years ago. Despite some differing opinions in terms of gameplay experience, we can more than likely expect the game to continue to be a favorite for some players seeking to get a little more from their gaming experience. Now the question is, will the game be made available to other consoles as well? Specifically, the Nintendo Switch? If you're interested to know, then sit back, relax, and allow us to answer some of your questions and possible concerns. Before getting into the video, take a second to leave a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell for future uploads. This is Gaming District. So, what is Rust? Well, as explained earlier, Rust is a multiplayer survival game which was released by Facepunch Studios back in 2013. If you played Minecraft before, then you'd already get a good grasp of what Rust is all about, since both games share some similarities with each other. Once you play Rust, you are transported to an island holding nothing but a torch and a rock. The game doesn't really explain too much about what you should do and where you should go. It leaves the discovering part to its player. Now the objective basically is to gather enough resources, both food and other necessities, to help you survive. That's basically it, but easier said than done. Using your gathered materials, you must try to craft different tools and shelters to aid you in increasing the chances of your survival. In the game, there are many things that could attack you or cause you to die. You can either be attacked by wild animals, you can starve to death, and of course, being a multiplayer game, you're always open to being attacked by other players. The ambiguity of the glaring difference faced by newcomers or newbies to the game is largely what makes the game unappealing to some players. Can you blame them though? But fortunately, there are some who experience the game for what it really is. Play long enough and you'd get to see what the hype is all about. Aside from the exciting premise of battling for survival, you also get to enjoy the breathtaking graphics offered by the game, making you feel as though you're actually outdoors, a luxury for most of us at this point. Now, as beautiful and as exciting as it is, people still want a little more flexibility when it comes to playing it on consoles. This was a concern that arose given that the game was originally released with a gaming PC in mind. Developers have made the move to make the game available to consoles, specifically PS4 and Xbox One. There was, however, no news yet about it being made available for the Nintendo Switch. The developers' move to expand the game to consoles is comforting, since it opens up the possibility that it will, one day, be made available to the Nintendo Switch. So, is it coming to the Nintendo Switch? There hasn't been a clear answer for the developers yet. There could be a chance that they will, should the demand for it equal the demand they got for the Xbox and PlayStation version. But more than a Nintendo Switch version, there are some issues that people need to consider. There are, of course, benefits to playing the game on the Switch. First off, its portability allows players to experience the game while they're on the go, not needing big desktops or clunky hardware to make the game work. That in mind, it would also spare the need of purchasing a gaming PC or other expensive consoles, just to be able to play the game. This also allows players to play in sync without the need of setting up anything, or again, needing any kind of extra hardware. All you need is your Switch, and you're good to go. So, generally speaking, Switch is relatively cheaper, easy to use, and portable. So, what are the downsides should the developers decide to make a Switch version of Rust? Well, the biggest foreseeable downside to this is that there would be a huge compromise to the graphics. If you've seen streamers play Rust, or if you played the game yourself, the first thing you'd notice is the great graphics the game has. The landscapes and the details are simply enough to make a customer feel happy with their purchase of the game. The reason developers made the game for the PC was because the PC is equipped with a high-quality graphics card, allowing it to run the game without any problems. In fact, when developers were making the Xbox and PlayStation version of the game, one of the biggest hurdles was knowing how to solve the graphics problem. Now, that's for the Xbox and PlayStation. Imagine that kind of compromising and recreating it would take to make the game suitable for the Nintendo Switch. Needless to say, something is bound to give way if ever they decide to pursue the adaptation. The second biggest problem is the time. It took a considerable amount of time for developers to create the console version of Rust. As they themselves said, they had to build from scratch, since making the console version required a new set of protocols and programming to address how the game will operate within the bounds of the console. Again, the game was originally made with a PC in mind. Downplaying the game for the console already took a significant amount of reimagining and troubleshooting. If they were able to do the same for the Nintendo Switch, which has a more limited set of hardware and software, that could push the development of this version possibly to more than a year. As was said earlier, the only way developers would actually consider taking the monumental task of making a Switch version of the game would depend entirely on the demand. Because in the end, the profit they make from making a Switch version should at least equal the amount of work they need to put in to make it happen. The best possible way for that to happen is if its popularity would continue an upward trajectory. When the game initially came out, there wasn't much hype for it. However, a couple of years after its release, there was a sudden jump in its popularity. The reason? More and more high-profile streamers and YouTubers have been playing the game. This served as sort of an advertisement for the game, prompting curious players to purchase the game themselves. Hopefully, the popularity and demand for it would continue to increase, because arguably, that could very well cause an increase in demand for a Switch version of the game. So, just to summarize, is Rust coming to the Nintendo Switch? There haven't been any clear announcements from the developers, given that they already taken the step of making a console version. If a Switch version was to be seen as a viable source of profit, which would depend on its demand, then we're more likely to see this version around the next year or two after its announcement. In your personal opinion, would you like to see Rust on Nintendo Switch? Or would you prefer to see it on Xbox and PlayStation? Sound off in the comment section below. And if you're new to the channel, thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. That way you never miss out on future uploads. Until next time.